Our old buddy Bernie Sanders is on the line with us. Senator Sanders, it's great to have you back with us. How's everything going?
I am delighted. I am delighted to show up, Tom.
Thank you. We're delighted to have you.
Around, and I want to tell you, as I go around the country, people say, Bernie, I haven't heard you. I brunched with Bernie lately. So, a lot of people remember that, and I'm so happy that we were able to do it. And look forward to being,
I'm sorry I interrupted you. I remember when you first came over to our house and we did that show from our living room. We started the show literally in my living room in Montpelier, Vermont. And
I remember that very well.
Yeah.
Your house was on some kind of precipice. I was afraid the house would collapse.
Yes. Yeah. C-SPAN came over and did the whole thing. Anyhow, Donald Trump seems to be raising racism to an art form. And this, frankly, really, really concerns me. And at the same time, I'm getting these emails from FreedomWorks, from this Koch-funded group, talking about how Antifa is doing all this violent stuff and political violence has to stop. And in fact, I had somebody call about it last week, and I had no idea what they were talking about. Apparently, this is a huge meme over on Fox News and on the hard right. What are your thoughts on Trump's racism and how it's infecting our society?
All right, let me just say a couple of things. And I say this not as a United States Senator from Vermont, not as a presidential candidate. I say this as an American citizen. And that is, I never in my life would have believed that we would have a president who is an overt racist. Never would have believed that. And it pains me deeply, just as an American, that we have a individual in the White House who hopes to win re-election, not on his policy ideas, not on what he's doing in healthcare, education, or the environment, but simply by dividing the American people up and demonizing certain groups of people based on the color of their skin, based on where they were born, based on their sexual orientation. This is, just at a very deep level, it is something I never, ever believed that I would live to see.
Yeah.
And it is obviously a tragedy for our country. We are seeing an increase in hate crimes. We are seeing an increase in divisiveness. And I will simply say to you that our campaign, the campaign that I'm running for president, is exactly the opposite of what Trump is trying to do. He is trying to divide the American people up, deflect attention away from the very, very serious problems, whether it's healthcare or the collapse of the American middle class or poverty or climate change or education or student debt, not talk about those issues, simply get us to try to hate each other. And we're going to do the opposite. We're going to bring people together around an agenda that works for all and not just the 1%. But this is a very painful and difficult moment in American history, and I would hope the American people rise up together and say, no, we will not accept this kind of bigotry and racism.
Yeah. Now, other topics here, if you don't mind my bringing up a few. The minimum wage, for example. Two quick thoughts on this. Number one, apparently there were a few Democrats who voted against this bill to raise the minimum wage, even though it had been watered down to make it acceptable to some of the, quote, moderate Democrats. One of them used to be my representative here in Oregon, and he's a Democrat in the House, and he voted no. As a matter of principle, don't raise the minimum wage. I don't get this, number one. And number two, on the front page of the Washington Post today, and I didn't read the article, I just read the headline, and so I'd love you to fill me in on this. It looked to me like it was attacking your campaign for not paying a $15 minimum wage to workers. And if you want to respond to that, I'd love to hear it.
Let me just follow. Well, that's not true, as a matter of fact.
That's what I figured.
Let me get to the first point. And that is, as you know, when I ran for president last time, we raised the issue of if people work in this country 40 hours a week, they should not live in poverty. They should have a living wage, and that living wage is $15 an hour. And as you recall, Tom, when I talked about that 4 years ago, it was seemingly a very radical idea, an extreme idea. But I'm really happy to say, because of the work done by the SEIU, the Fight for 15, what we have seen is 7 states pass a minimum wage of $15 an hour. And just yesterday, as you mentioned, the Congress, the House of Representatives voted to raise that minimum wage $15 an hour. And you're right, that legislation was watered down. It takes an extra year to do it. I was not happy about that. My legislation in the Senate would be, I think, a much stronger piece of legislation. The issue right now is that the House has passed the bill. And what Mitch McConnell is doing is not saying, okay, let's have a debate on raising the minimum wage. Now, if Mitch McConnell, who represents a very poor state of Kentucky, if he doesn't want to vote to raise the minimum wage above $7.25 an hour, he has that right. But he does not have the right as a majority leader to prevent that debate. So the demand that we are making, and we're asking people to write to McConnell to sign the petition that we will be circulating, is to tell McConnell that he has to bring that bill up. If he wants to vote against it, he can explain it to Kentucky. But he has to allow that debate and that vote. Because the truth is, we have tens of millions of people in this country who are working for starvation wages and need a raise, and that's what that bill will do. In terms of my own campaign, I'm proud to say, first of all, as a United States Senator, I was the first senator to make sure that everybody who worked for me, including interns, made $15 an hour. We were the first office in the Senate to do that. We were the first campaign in American history to recognize the union and, in fact, sign a union contract, which we're working on right now. Not only do our lower-paid workers, our field organizers, make $15 an hour, they also have 100% coverage on their health care. Not too many employers provide that, and other very good benefits. The issue we're dealing with, and I can't get into it in detail because we are in the midst of labor negotiations, and it would probably be illegal for me to do that. But the issue we're getting into is that some of our field organizers obviously are going to work more than 40 hours a week. And how we deal with that, we made an offer which would make sure that everybody made at least $15 an hour. That was rejected. We're in the midst of these negotiations, so I can't say more than that. But every worker on our campaign makes $15 an hour with very, very good benefits. The lower wage workers, 100% health care coverage. So we're proud of how we treat our employees.
Great. Meanwhile, the Midwest and the East Coast is suffering under a massive heat wave. It's not bad here in Oregon, but boy, the rest of the country is really getting whacked. This is happening all over the world. What's the story with climate change with regard to the United States Congress right now?
This is an issue that we have to, there are so many issues out there. It's almost hard to determine what's the most important, but I can't help but think that the future of the planet is of some importance, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
And the kind of planet we leave our kids and future generations. And as you just mentioned, what we're seeing now, if my memory is correct, but this last June was the warmest June on record.
That's correct.
I believe, obviously, July is not yet over, that July may be headed that same direction. That what we have seen is year after year after year, some of the warmest years on record. What we are seeing in the last couple of years are terrible, terrible heat waves and droughts, and from Australia to India to Europe to Latin America to the United States. We're dealing with heat waves right now. And what is particularly upsetting, really, really, really upsetting and frightening, is that we have a president who is prepared to sacrifice the lives of future generations in order to protect his friends in the fossil fuel industry. I mean, this is literally beyond comprehension. I don't understand. And I don't understand how we can have people who are running the coal companies, the oil companies, the gas companies, who keep doing business as usual as they destroy the planet. So what we need to do, and I want to thank the young people out there, they have been playing a great role, the Sunrise folks and everybody else. We have got to demand that we have a leadership in this country, the most powerful nation on earth, that not only does the right thing in the United States by transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy, but leads the world. This is not an American issue. This is an issue for every country on earth. So what the United States has got to do, we need leadership. This is what I will do as president, is demand that countries like China and India and Russia and Brazil and all the major countries on earth, all the countries on earth, come together and maybe, I know this is a radical vision here, but maybe instead of spending $1.5 trillion trying to on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe we can use those resources to transform the planet's energy system away from fossil fuel and save the planet for our kids and our grandchildren. This is a global crisis.
Yeah, and in the process, create millions of jobs.
That's right. Many millions of jobs. In the United States, Vermont is a state which has, like many other states, has a lot of older buildings which are completely energy inefficient, waste a lot of energy. We will save people money on their fuel bills. We will create jobs. We will help save the planet. So we need a massive program to make our buildings more energy efficient, move radical changes in our transportation system. We've got to rebuild or build a first-rate rail system in this country. And we need to move aggressively to wind, solar, and other forms of sustainable energy. Can we do it? Yeah, we can do it. The engineers, the scientists know what has to be done. What is lacking here is political will. And this lack of political will, this insanity on the part of the president who thinks that climate change is a hoax, I mean, this is not only endangering our generation, this is the planet and future generations that we are talking about. So we have got to do everything that we can, not only to defeat Trump, but to make it clear that what the fossil fuel industry is doing is absolutely immoral and unacceptable.
Amen. And in the minute and a half or so we have left before we hit a hard break here, I'm curious how Medicare for All is going. You really championed this issue 4 years ago. It was considered a impossible and a fringe issue, and now a number of the presidential nominees or candidates are signing on to it. How's it going?
It's going really well. And in fact, again, in a period of 4 years, it's not just transforming the debate over the minimum wage. We have done that with Medicare for All. Look, the American people are catching on that the current system is a dysfunctional system. When we are spending twice as much per capita on health care as do the people of any other country, and yet we have over 80 million Americans who are either uninsured or underinsured with high deductibles and co-payments. When we lose about 30,000 people every single year because they don't go to a doctor when they should, when we are paying by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. You know, in a couple of weeks, less than that, on the 28th, in 10 days, I'll be going to Detroit, Michigan, going over the border into Canada with a group of people suffering from diabetes. We're going to purchase insulin for 1/10 of the price in Canada that we're paying here in the United States. How insane is that?
Wow.
So what this fight is about is taking on the great power, the extraordinary power of the insurance companies and the drug companies who make billions of dollars every year in an irrational and dysfunctional healthcare system. We need to move to a Medicare for All single-payer system. We need to understand that healthcare is a human right, not a privilege, not a commodity in which drug companies and insurance companies make billions in profit.